Hey, everybody, Buzzball, tell me why I should love again. I know, we've been teased before. I presume you're talking about being in love with the notion of J.J. Watt coming back, where we deluded ourselves and then we forgot it and then we deluded ourselves again. I've got evidence. Okay, and some of it. I know you guys have questions that many of which are very, very understandable, and they're the same questions I have. I actually have a list of 19 different questions that I'm not going to. Don't worry, I'm not going to read the.
The only thing.
Okay. I got first. Let me show Nikki Glazer. This is where I started thinking about things a little bit differently. Not this particular clip, but just to set the stage for the roast the other night.
Tom, the only thing dumber than you saying yes to this roast was when you said, "Hey, babe, you should try jujitsu." I think that's gotta suck.
So, embarrassment over past misdeeds or just things in general. That's going to be a theme, is for one of the reasons why this might not happen. Where is my list of questions? I just wanted you guys to see my forehead. Okay, here's the thing. J.J. Watt was asked at the Charity Softball Classic, because I know many of you have already seen or heard this clip, but just to remind everybody, Brandon Scott asked J.J. Watt, how do you resist the temptation to come back? And a little bit of background here. JJ has complimented Brandon Scott before for asking very thoughtful questions, and I think that helped. This wasn't just some random jamoke asking, "Hey JJ, you coming back to play?" So I think JJ probably felt like he owed it to Brandon to give a thoughtful response to something that he's kind of probably gotten tired of answering.
And I'm a very fortunate, lucky man. I got a beautiful wife. I got a beautiful son. I've had 12 great years in this league, and I'm very thankful to have walked away healthy and playing great. I told DeMeco last year, I said, don't call unless you absolutely need it. But if you ever do call, I'll be there. But he knows not to call unless he absolutely needs it. This is the last year I'll tell him that, because I'm not going to keep training the way I've been training. But he knows that if he ever truly does need it, I'll be there for him. But I don't anticipate that happening. They got a very good crew.
All right. The part that I just keep coming back to continually is that he says he's not going to keep training the way he's been training, that this would be the last year that offer would be on the table. So that's an argument for me that's the most convincing, that JJ this year compared to last year might genuinely be ready to give it a go. The counter argument to my own argument would be that, he did say, unless you absolutely need it, a couple times, which is that's like tell anybody, hey, if you need a favor, I'm here for you, but only if you really, really need it. Only like I'm trying to tell you no, okay? And that part is what I got hung up on the first time. But if you go back and look at the timeline of everything and the way it happened last year, I think that JJ in the offseason, as he told Sean Pendergast and myself during a pregame interview, as he said multiple times on Chris Long's podcast, on the Pat McAfee show, last year during the offseason, he was not working out like an NFL player. He was just doing hotel gym type of workouts. He's getting his cardio in. He was doing some high rep, lighter weight stuff. He wanted to look good on television, but not too goofy in a suit. It's hard to be big and not look goofy in a suit when you're as muscular as he is. So he was on that kind of plan. And I think by the time any possibility of him playing came around last year, like just knowing JJ and what he said about what it takes to prepare for a season, I don't think he would have felt ready. If you think about like when Ndamukong Suh a couple of years ago and Linval Joseph came back to play for the Eagles when they were on their playoff run, I thought that it was pretty obvious that Ndamukong Suh wasn't quite in the same type of shape that he had been before, but he was still an effective player. But I think JJ wants to come back. If he were to come back in that absolutely need me situation, I think he wants to be more than just that. I'll show you. Will Kunkel.
I told DeMeco last year. I said, don't.
Hold on, JJ. It's your time to speak. Now it's time for Cody Stutes. Let's look at Cody Stutes. That's not Cody Stutes. That's not Cody Stutes. Where the frick is Cody Stutes? All right, we're gonna leave Cody Stutes out of this for a moment. Here's via Sean Pendergast's Twitter, DeMeco Ryans when asked about the topic.
To hear JJ saying he's ready, I got his number ready to go just in case we need it. JJ, playing in this softball event this past weekend, it was fun to see all the guys. JJ looks good, he's in shape, he's ready to roll. So I may need to make that call. So I'm happy that that it's open from him. But JJ is an outstanding player, man. He's been an outstanding player for a long time in this league, and it's just I'm proud of him for what he's able to do in the community. Still reaching back, and the people that he's touched here in the city of Houston, it's outstanding to see the response and all the people that showed up to support him this past Saturday. So, man, really proud of JJ.
DeMeco.
Okay, so before he gets to the second part of that question, he transitioned. I hadn't picked up on this before. He did transition into kind of the like, hey, yeah, let's think about everything JJ has done in the past for the community, not on the football field. So there is that. He says, I haven't felt the need to give him that call. And then I think it was Jonathan. No, it might have been Cody Davis that ended up asking a follow-up question.
I know what, if I can ask two quick questions. Under what circumstance would you, because he said call him only if you need him, but under what circumstance would you actually call?
I need him now. I need to make that call right now. Anytime you get JJ Watt's ready to go, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, so I don't know that last part. If you take the transcript of it, then yeah, it sounds. DeMeco Ryan said, "Hey, I need him right now." He doesn't need him during mini camp. He doesn't need him during training camp. He almost. I don't want to say he doesn't. Like, you can always bring good football players on, but like, what would be the situation that would constitute DeMeco really needs JJ Watt? It's hard because this defense is going to rotate defensive linemen. No matter how awesome your starting four are, you're going to rotate guys in. So it's really hard to say that, oh yeah, well, no, they're better off with Tim Settle or Foley Fadakasu instead of JJ Watt in certain specific situations. So they could totally use him right now. It's a matter of, all right, does JJ actually mean it? And would he come back? And like, what does he want to sign on for? If I'm in JJ's shoes, there's a couple of things that are like a big barrier to it. One is just something that Nikki Glazer touched on with Tom Brady.
You really are. I mean, you're the best to ever play for too long. I mean, you retired, then you came back, and then you retired again. I mean, I get it. It's hard to walk away from something that's not your pregnant girlfriend. It's tough. Hey.
Okay, to be clear to anybody that wasn't familiar with the roast, she's talking about Tom Brady, not JJ Watt. So the part I was talking about was the retiring, walking away, coming back, retiring again. Like, I think there's that would be a barrier for me personally. Is just if I were at JJ Watt's status and caliber, is like, you don't want to become that cliche, the guy that just couldn't stay away and came back and then maybe gets injured again, and then it's just an easy punchline for everybody. In a non-roast type of situation. So I think there's that, and the other part of it too is just that if he is going to come back, I don't think he wants to come back to a team that got off to a disappointing start. I don't want he doesn't want to relive 2013 where you're everybody's darling in the offseason. You're the dark horse favorite to go to the Super Bowl, all those things. And then everything falls apart, even if it's not as cataclysmically as it was for the 2013 Texans, that he might just not want to deal with that, So there's that. And then the other side of it, like in the part that it's not fun to talk about right now because we're in fantasy land, is just simply the salary side of it. So would he have expectations or demands that were beyond what the Texans were comfortable doing right now? Like if it came down between signing Stephon Gilmore or JJ Watt, and JJ just wanted a boatload of money, which I don't think would happen, but he's also had a boatload of injuries and he'd be coming out of retirement to come play again. Like he might want a little bit of that financial consideration. That's the ugly, mucky part that nobody probably wants to talk about, nor do they need to talk about it right now. So you guys had some good points. I should have been jumping in. I'm trying to be more interactive on the live streams. I get stuck in radio mode, just like a radio dork. He's going to wait until at least mid-season, probably even later, to make sure the Texans are in the playoff hunt. Yeah, thank you, Nick. Yep, exactly. I agree with you there. And I think the same might go for other teams as well. If he's thinking, and it doesn't matter what the scheme is. If I'm JJ Watt, which to be clear, I am not, But if I were JJ Watt and I were coming out of retirement and given my own personal injury history, if I were as good a pass rusher as JJ Watt, ideally it would be to a situation where I'm a situational pass rusher. And I'm not in there. I don't think JJ, I don't personally, this is not me talking, not me putting myself in his shoes. I don't think he wants any part of being down at 3 technique on first down. I would be surprised if he did want any of that. But coming in as a situational pass rusher and playing anywhere along the defensive line where you'd have Will Anderson, JJ Watt, DeMeco Autry, and then Danielle Hunter on 3rd and 15. Go ahead and scheme me up what you're working on there, offensive coordinator. Like, are you going to have 7-man protection and still leave at least one of those guys with a one-on-one? Are you gonna go naked and just try to get the ball out ASAP? You're left without a lot of options for how you handle that pass rush. I told Sean, it's like a blitz. It's like having those 4 guys would be like having a blitz called without anybody actually blitzing, because a couple of guys are going to come free. It's because they're going to get one-on-ones, or those teams are going to have to devote extra offensive linemen, and it makes it easier for everybody else on the back end. Let's see. If DeMeco comes to you for D-line, will you do it? I will say, in my instance, this is not me putting myself in JJ's shoes. It's all about the money. It would take so much money. It would take so much money for me to go back and step on a football field. Have you guys watched football? Like, have you guys seen exactly how violent it is? I always remember I was 2 years out of it the first time I was on the sideline for a game. And honestly, my first reaction was like, what the hell was I thinking for all those years? There's no way in hell you can get me out there. Would I fight Mike Tyson before I would? Okay, no, that's stupid. No, I wouldn't fight Mike Tyson first, but hello. Thank you, Lil Mass Nat. If JJ comes back, he has to come back early. No point of a late season comeback and be out of football shape. The football shape part is interesting. Again, if he's a situational pass rusher and he's getting like 15 or 20 snaps a game, I don't worry about that. That's not even like actual football shape, because it's not as much pushing and pulling and just playing defensive line all 3 downs for a 10 play series against heavy run sets at times. Like, that feels like you're pushing a 7-man sled. So I don't worry as much about that. He's going to be in shape. Getting in football shape would be like, if you mean early, like he comes back and they don't activate him for a few games until after he gets back, I agree with you there. I don't think he needs to come back in like May, June, or July. Details of the picture behind me. I'll do that at the end, because I know we've done that before. Me and all the city of Houston would love to see JJ back in a Texans uniform, especially my wife. 50-50. Okay, Freddie, this is where I am. I feel like it's better than 50-50 now. And to go back, so to go back, and thank you. I'm glad. I should have said this after the comment about the being in football shape. To go back to week 9 of last year. So week 9 of last year, he was at a Steelers game. And I'm going to show you something. This was from the Pat McAfee show. This was him talking about, let's see. First, I want to do something. Hold on one second, everybody. I got too many tabs open. So I want to find this JJ Watt deal. Okay, here we go. This is him week 9 when asked by Pat McAfee for the umpteenth time, probably. Where is that? Why is that not done? There we go. Whether he would come back and play. Tell me if you hear the sound on this.
Is that what you started thinking of?
Ooh.
I mean, I will say that Sunday when we were at his house and he was getting ready for the game, he comes home from the team hotel because it's a night game. Or I guess it was Thursday. So Thursday he comes home from the hotel and he's getting ready for the game. He's getting dressed. He's putting on his music. He's got his coffee. And as the music starts going and it gets closer and closer, he's getting ready to leave. And we start talking about the pregame. Like, that was truly the first time where I was like, man, I wish I was doing this right now.
Oh.
Like, I do wish like for that moment, I was like, I do wish that I was getting ready for a game. And just that feeling, that adrenaline, and being able to see it and feel it in the house. It was the first time that I actually had that FOMO about it.
Oh yeah, how'd the wife, how'd the family think about it? They're like, JJ, look,
Wait a minute.
What's this?
oh, this is a little bit different. You start wearing your head in.
Well, then after the game, when we're driving home, and he's talking about, my finger hurts, my wrist hurts, my heel hurts. I was like, oh yeah, that's why I don't do it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Hold on. Thanks a lot, TJ. Thanks a lot. Oh, and then wait. Okay, all right, let me bring that back then. I haven't listened to the extended part of it. We added this on the fly during the show the other day when Sean remembered this clip.
On their facility, and it's a great spot. Being around some of those guys and the strength coaches, and just kind of that atmosphere inside of a building, it. I mean, there's nothing like that camaraderie, that chemistry, that feeling of being in a building. So
Yes. There's nothing like that. That's the thing that lures you back, because I know, like, some of you maybe not watching right now, but we'll watch later. Like some of you that are like firefighters or work in any kind of industry where you can have kind of a locker room vibe to it. Like, the appeal of that. And in football, it's like you go from being surrounded by guys that you enjoy being around all day long, every day, and that being your job, to like often a whole lot of damn isolation, and JJ's having a good time and he's jet setting around all over the world and everything. But in your given day, there's just, I kind of just miss getting busted on every now and then. And I'm like, I was lucky enough. It's one of the reasons I like doing sports radio, is I get to just pal around with people all day long. And it's a good gig, and it's just not the same. No matter what you get into afterwards, it's not the same. So I think the fact that he had not prepared, and I think he genuinely thought he was 100% retired going into 2023. But then in week 9 of that year, that was the first time he really had that pang of like, oh, boy, man. And then you remember a little bit after that, JJ was back in Houston for the Arizona game, and there was that photo of him wearing cleats. So maybe he started to work out a little bit more like a football player. Like that part of it, it just all indicates to me that there was something. It's not just I don't think it's just some publicity ruse or anything, or just a way to help McAfee get clicks or anything like that. I think that he's probably going through the exact same thing that a lot of retired athletes do, is when, man, now that your body isn't hurting as much, and then you start thinking about like, okay, I could be used situationally. Chad Johnson and Shannon Sharp, I'm going to play a clip a little bit later, say some funny stuff about the situational part of it. But Pat McAfee, let me play the clip of Pat McAfee and his reaction to DeMeco's comments from this past weekend. Or excuse me, his reaction to JJ Watt's comments from this past weekend.
How about DeMeco just being like, all right, JJ? Well,
Didn't need him.
Kind of wild. Don't need you, JJ. Or is it like, hey, guy gets hurt on Friday, okay, and you need somebody, and we can't sign anybody, I'll be there. And if he gets dropped into a game down there in Houston next year, week 15, what if it's against probably will be against the Indianapolis Colts. Yeah. Could you imagine that stadium with him, CJ Stroud, Will Anderson, them all coming out of the tunnel? It would be insane. It would be a Houston Texans wet dream for the Texans fan base.
Pat lays it out a lot better and smarter. I try to intellectualize all this stuff. Pat makes the most enticing part of that is just honestly whenever the entrance would be, the re-entrance would be. So, but the question does become, okay, when is it that they really need him? And as Cody Stutz had said, hey, if they didn't need him last year when Will Anderson and John Grenard were both injured at the same time, they were in a playoff hunt, all of that, and they didn't put up the bat signal then, why not? Why now, if not then? I really think it maybe came more down to whether JJ genuinely felt he was prepared or not. And like this guy, he remembers what it was like coming back from an injury to play in the playoffs the year he tore his pec, and how he just wasn't the same guy. And that was after he'd been playing football the entire season before he got injured. I think he probably understands and knows just the older you get, the bigger an ask it is of your body, even if you feel awesome in the moment, to come back and to recapture all that stuff. I realized that I said something. First, yes, please hit the like button. And then I realized that I did say, Yeah. I probably could have phrased that differently. Good point, everybody. Ocho Cinco got his own age wrong. Yes, but he still thinks he can play. Okay, I'll play that clip in a little bit. I got to get to Florio for Florio. Mike Florio. I'm as critical of Florio as anybody else. I will say I do think Florio's writing comes off snarkier than when he says things in person. So his writer's voice is different than his actual voice. I find that when I'm watching his show, he does say some things where I'm kind of like, all right, that's a good point, Florio. I'll forget these other things. I'll forget all these other things where you're trying to play, former lawyer on here. This is a good point. I felt like this is a good point, again, and just kind of capturing the emotional side of it and what it's like for not just JJ, but all retired players.
For him, where he is right now, I think the farther removed you get from the pain and the agony and the despair and the
oh God, and his body's healed and he probably feels good.
Yeah, you feel good.
Yeah,
you feel
right,
good.
Right.
And you also feel a void.
Right.
You feel a void in your career. Every year you see another team hoisting that trophy and getting their rings. And that's got to gnaw at you. And it's not just him. There's guys all throughout history. That was one of the big topics at the roast last night, how Randy Moss was one of the few guys who played with Tom Brady who didn't get a ring during his career.
Yeah. Okay. So Florio touched on a couple things. One is just the emotional side of missing it, but then the Super Bowl part, and whether it's ring chasing or just wanting to go to a team that's got a competitive shot at going to the Super Bowl, whatever it might be. I think that's all in play. I do think there was a time this year where JJ had mentioned that, man, one thing you realize when you get into broadcasting is that the team that you play for matters in terms of how much either people A, care about you, or B, what they want out of the commentary when it comes Super Bowl time. So JJ's never played in a championship game, never played in a Super Bowl. And it's got to be kind of tough sometimes when you're sitting at a round table and it hits the playoffs and it hits the Super Bowl and people are going to be deferring to the opinion of the guys who have played in that game. So, not that would be the sole reason he would come back, but I wonder if it just twists the knife a little bit that JJ is a much better player than a lot of these guys who come Super Bowl time get a boatload of love and, attention and people wanting their advice for what it's really like or how do you play in this game. That part, I don't think it would be a primary driver, but I think it might be one of those things that just makes you feel like, oh gosh, I didn't give myself, I got 60 or 70 years left on this earth. And man, I could just spend one more year trying to go after this, or just a few months to go after this. One of you guys. Okay. It's a whole lot of stuff. I see. All right. Every comment is about me getting busted on, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that you're fixated with that. Seth, were you shocked at all when JJ decided to join the Cardinals? Okay, good question. I don't think any rational fan in Houston would have blamed him for joining Tampa. Most fans of JJ just wanted him to get a ring. Yeah, I think I've talked to a few guys about this, about signing somewhere when you're an older player. And the concept of ring chasing can get tough if you're not specifically going to play with Pat Mahomes, or at that point specifically going to play with Tom Brady, where the deck is really stacked in favor of them winning a Super Bowl. I don't think that I think a lot of guys feel like, man, it's just a crapshoot. And in any given year, half the teams that were playoff teams the previous year don't make it, and vice versa. That finding the best fit for you personally might be what matters more. And that also maybe he was sold on the upside of Kyler Murray. But yeah, that wasn't like, maybe he could have gone to the Chiefs and played for minimum. But another part of it too is that, I mean, there's a part of why you play the game where, aside from wanting to make that money, the money is a sign of respect and commitment from the team too. So, volunteering your services also leaves you to be treated like a guy that can just be cast aside. There's something about, the pay part is love also. And you want to be with a place that shows that they genuinely want you. Now that might be a whole lot of highfalutin talk, really just meant to disguise my money grubbing nature, but I believe it for the purposes of this scenario. I'd give 5-1. No freaking way DeMeco lets JJ play if he thinks JJ didn't have the ability to play at a level that would tarnish his legacy. Right? Yeah. And I don't think, I guess that's a good question. Tarnishing his legacy and like what obligation DeMeco or Caserio might feel in bringing JJ Watt in. It comes with a lot of, I don't want to say baggage. That's not the right word, but I guess a whole lot of extra potential implications and certainly distractions, including, all right, what if JJ comes back and he's not effective? And it turns into a point where, like, man, we need to make him a game day inactive. Like, his body is just not snapping back. I think that's a bridge you cross when you get to it. The last year in the NFL, he had 12 and a half sacks. And if I recall, it was spread out pretty consistently and evenly across the season. I don't think he just feasted like with, a 5-sack game and a 3-sack game. Although even the top pass rushers do accumulate a lot of sacks by feasting on the bad opponents. And he was an effective player. So given 1 year to recuperate and be healthy, and really honestly, this is another big part of the temptation of going back. After you spend an entire year out of the NFL, and if you stay active like JJ, this is probably the healthiest he's been since the beginning of his rookie season, because it just accumulates and piles on and adds on. I want to take a few more questions for you guys, but first I want to show this. I cut this down. Shannon Sharp on his podcast with Chad Johnson brought up the JJ Watt comments. They were gonna react to the JJ situation. This is hilarious, though. It ended up turning into Chad Johnson trying to convince Shannon Sharp that he could still come back and play. And I edited it down to basically just the parts where Shannon Sharp is emphatically telling Chad Johnson that no, he can't play.
Tom also lost $30 million in crypto.
Oh, there's this first, though. Tom also lost $30 million in crypto.
Tom, how did you fall for that? I mean, even Gronk was like, me know that not real money. Like,
I just wanted to get that in there. Nikki Glaser crushed it. She absolutely crushed it.
And JJ,
what the hell?
What?
And first, Phil Simms. I'm really teasing this Chad Johnson stuff, aren't I?
Teams that are contenders, right? Ex-coaches that have relationships with him that are throughout the league. Are they on any of the contenders? I think those are things we got to kind of watch out for. I mean, I think that's legitimately putting it out there when he says it that way. But man, you just think about teams like, oh, wait, if Detroit got into week 16, 15, and they needed somebody, man, J.J. Watt seems like he'd be Dan Campbell kind of guy, right?
Okay. Yeah, fine, Chris Simms. I was trying to get to Chad Johnson and Shannon Sharp, but then a few times you guys made some good points here. I'm going to be real with you. Take with me. There's no way he comes back. I don't see that. And again, I'll lean back. I don't know when you came in, but the biggest part of his comments were that this offer to DeMeco Ryans is only valid for 1 more year because he's not going to be working out like this after that. Okay, then why on earth would he be working out the way he is working, like where he feels like he's ready to come back? Because it's not a fun way to work out. Like once you transition from like, oh, I'm going to do zone 2 cardio for 45 minutes to doing deep squats with 500 pounds on your back and vice versa, like all those other things. It's not a fun, enjoyable way to work out, and it's not the best thing for your longevity. So I disagree with you about there's no way he comes back. I think there's reasonable arguments to be had on like the likelihood that he comes back. I'm tipped over the 50% mark right now. If it were a court of law, I would have to find in favor of more probable that he comes back either to the Texans or somewhere else. If not, the other thing that Chris Simms touched on there was just simply that, yeah, there are multiple teams that might be willing to sign JJ. And that, again, if JJ's waiting to see to be sure that the Texans are just, playoff contenders before he comes back midway through the season, I'm guessing that would put the Texans at the top of the list. If all of a sudden everything goes south for the Texans, if CJ Stroud gets injured or something like that, he might still think about coming back. But if the Texans aren't at the very top of the list at that point, I think the Texans they've got a hometown discount or a most favored nation status in all of this, if I had to guess. Another couple questions. I swear he looks like he was way more mass than last year. He looks way more NFL ready at the softball tournament. Oh, than the The past interview or the page? Okay. Oh, the pad interview. Thank you. Boy, that's a good. You know what he'd been doing more of what did he told me what he called it? Basically, just like a like looking good for a guy that's body is kind of beat up. Like sometimes you end up actually, it's like bodybuilders. Bodybuilders do more reps lighter weight than power lifters do. Power lifters are doing low reps, super heavy weight. But the workouts that add mass are that higher rep bodybuilding type of, they pump you up. And yeah, maybe he's looked a little bit more pumped up. I don't know if his functional strength and all that was the same, but he did look. Everything was the same except for his neck, because he said he was like 3 or 4 pounds. Last year during the season, he was only like 3, 4, 5 pounds lighter than his playing weight. I think the reason he looked so much slimmer was just because he probably hadn't been training his neck. That's probably the question. There's no reason to train your neck if you're not getting ready to play football or do something violent. So especially JJ's at this, potential sleep apnea age there too. Neck mass, whether it's by fat or muscle, neck circumference, increases your odds of sleep apnea. So there's your little tidbit for the day. Which movie am I referring to? God, I don't remember which movie I even just referenced. Maybe we can get a private workout, but I bet no contract. Yeah, I'm at 55% at least right now. Here is hopefully this is Shannon Sharp for 1 minute and 10 seconds telling Chad Johnson there's no way in hell he can go back and play.
I like that. Matter of fact, I'm gonna try that too. You want to give Tyler
your ass old? Ain't nothing on you fresh.
Who old?
You.
Who old? I have no wear and tear. And
you got age. Age
is nothing but a number.
Yeah, and your number is high as hell. You play Madden right now.
You think I can't sauce nobody up right now?
Oh, you playing Madden?
What you don't get to see in the off season is I train with these fellas. I know I can go out there and compete on special occasions.
The only special occasion you competing for is Mother's Day, Father's Day, all the holidays. Those are the special occasions that you're gonna be at.
I'm just as fast.
No, you're not. Bring Ocho in. He's great. He can talk to the young man, let them know what to expect in the NFL.
Talk while I'm
competing. Get them how to manage the money and things of that nature. Do not bring Ocho in because Ocho cannot play in the NFL.
That's a lie.
You can't play.
I don't like that. I don't like that you saying that.
They still break your ass in two.
I played against the Steelers and the Ravens twice a year. That's physical. You can't even hit nobody today. You know what I had to endure?
For the last decade, you've been waiting on a call to come. Guess who called?
I didn't say I was waiting on the call.
So that's Nightcap. That's with Shannon Sharp and Chad Johnson, formerly Chad Ochocinco, formerly Chad Johnson. And they do. I feel like Shannon Sharp has 17 different shows now. He's not gotten lazy in his old age at all. And you know what? I hadn't thought of this until I watched that. I edited it down to just Shannon making fun of Chad, and it was like a full minute and a half of Shannon just tearing down Chad. Like Shannon Sharp looks like he could still play. Chad Johnson said that he still works out with Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, and I can't remember if he mentioned anybody else. He still works out with those guys in the offseason, and that's why he feels like he can still play. This is where it gets super tempting sometimes, is when you're working out with guys in a controlled environment with no pads on, and most critically, without having played a football game 7 days prior, it is tempting to start thinking like, yeah, I can still do this. Yeah, well, I'm fine. And you forget that, okay, those guys that you're going against, because he goes out there as a DB covering those guys. So he's not even actually just going out and competing against anybody as a wide receiver. I think it's tempting, but Chad Johnson is like, I think he's my age. He's 47 or 48 years old. It's what can you do? What can you do after that first game and after you've gotten an injury and you're going to be more likely to get an injury? That's the scary part. Let's see. In your 40s, the legs are the first thing to go. No more running for me personally. Gronk looks like he could still play. Yeah, I think there's more and more guys now who are in their 40s look like they could still play. Everybody just takes care of themselves better. I think the drug of choice of boomers steadily or slowly becoming marijuana over alcohol might have something to do with that too. It's not to get into old drug legalization or whatever, anything, but it's a lot of things about pot that are a lot better for you than alcohol. So a lot of things about both that are awful fun regardless. He really thinks he can come back. I think Chad Johnson, yeah, I think he does. I think he really does. Okay, so last thing. I honestly, the other day, I woke up at 4 a.m., and this was just yesterday, and I thought, man, I know we're going to talk about J.J. Watt today, and I feel like is there enough meat on that bone? So I sat down and I started writing questions, and I ended up with 14, 15, 16, 17 questions that remain unanswered. And a lot of you guys have already made comments that answered some of these questions, or you asked the questions themselves. But I think the biggest one I really have at this point is who says no. Like if it's, let's say JJ Watt comes back to play on a 1-year, $10 million contract. Let's say, but except prorated for a half season. So it's like 1 year, $5 or $6 million to come back for a Texans team that is at full strength with their starting defensive lineman. So that's key. They're at full strength with their starting defensive lineman, but it's 1 year of JJ Watt for $6 million or the remainder of the season for $6 million. Who says no to that? And why? For JJ, maybe it's that's not enough to tempt him into getting injured again. Because remember, yes, you're looking for that glory and that championship and finishing unfinished business in Houston. But there's also the very real threat that he's going to have to go through another ACL rehab. And that makes you, that all of a sudden, like when the rubber hits the road, that can make you a little bit more, not money grubby, but maybe a little bit more rational about things. But 1 year, $6 million, I can't figure out who says no there. If we make it 1 year, let's make it 1 year, $10 million for a half season's worth of work. I don't think JJ says no to that. That's $20 million for one season. That's crazy. That's almost franchise tag money for a guy that hasn't played in over a year and is old. Do the Texans say no at that point? Right now, they've got a boatload of cap space. They could easily finagle in that $10 million contract. I don't think they say no. If you come into it with eyes wide open, that's why none of it makes JJ would not be working out like this and say that I'm only going to work out like this for what sounds like 6 more months if he wasn't very seriously considering coming back. I refuse to ask him personally because I don't like to ask people questions that they have to lie about. I remember I talked to why am I blanking on his name? He writes for The Athletic, and he was the athletic writer for the Texans, and now he's for the Eagles. I feel so bad about not remembering his name right this moment. But anyway, I talked to him once. It was after one of these Caserio rumors came up last year about how, remember Mike Lombardi floated it out there that there was a lot of chatter that Caserio might be going back to New England. And somebody will tell me who that was. And the writer, basically, I was talking to him about it. He was basically saying, like, I hate asking questions like this of like Caserio because it's a silly rumor, but it's out there in the news. And if it's something that doesn't come with a whole lot of credibility, you don't want to put a person in a position where they might have to lie or they might have to deny something that shouldn't even have to be denied. And it just, it gets kind of tricky. You don't want to have to put people in, like GMs and coaches a lot of times get put in positions where basically they have to lie as part of coach speak. Like Dana Brown right now claiming that there's no scenario he can envision where they'd be sellers at the trade deadline. Like, all right, that's something you got to say because you don't want the clubhouse to be put into any kind of further turmoil or tizzy or start to, create the whole gossip game going behind his back. Let's see. So he's got $33 million from the floods. All right. For those of you who don't know or understand that, that's a long-standing, like, idiotic conspiracy theory from people that think that JJ didn't distribute money from the Harvey relief, despite JJ putting the actual receipts out there of every single bit of money that was everything that was donated. Like, he put it out there publicly. You can go to the website. They've got receipts and everything. So that was in the life of Colby making a funny joke, but that these days Even after the Tom Brady roast, people are going to get too serious about something. Texans would not say no to $20 million. They want JJ to have a ring as bad as the city does. It'd light the city and locker room on fire. $20 million's a lot. $20 million's a lot in the second half of the season. Depending on how things go, it's ironically, the more injuries you have, which would thereby create the more desperate situation where DeMeco might put up the bat signal, also makes it a lot harder to sign somebody who wants a $10 million contract because it squeezes you a little bit. Now, the Texans are in a situation where whatever they do creatively this year, I don't worry about because they still have CJ's rookie contract. And like if they sign they sign JJ to a deal with options where it pushed it off into the future, I'd be okay with that as long as the season was going smashingly well. Oh, you know what? They have brand new jerseys to plaster 99 on. They have that to sign them. It doesn't help with the salary cap, but maybe it helps from just makes it a little bit more enticing that like selling a whole bunch of merch would help fund the salary. Again, doesn't do a damn thing for the salary cap. The biggest surprise that Hannah mentioned on the 610 uniform release, maybe Watt. Did she mention Watt during the stream there? There's so much content that week. So much content this week. Give him the Joe Flacco deal the Browns gave him. Yeah, what did Flacco get? Okay, good. That's it. You know what? That is a great point. And I'm guessing since I don't have a spot track, Browns. All right, 1 year, $2.5 million. And when did they sign him? It was like towards the end of the season, right? It was like, he came in and he ended up playing the last 5 or 6 games. See, JJ would command more than that, I think. Flacco is sitting out there. That's interesting. Flacco was so much his old self that he threw like 2 incredibly stupid interceptions, like easily duped in the playoffs. That's what Flacco would do. He would have stretches of brilliance and then stretches of idiocy, and he was just fully himself, as young as he ever was in that playoff run. Oh, I asked for a new helmet for my bookcase. Okay, I've got a question for all you guys. I have that. Let me go grab it, and then I'm going to show you that picture like somebody asked, and let me go grab this helmet. Okay. So there's this helmet. This is my Ed Block Courage Award. It's one of the badassest things I've ever owned. I'm not much into material goods, but I love this thing. I really like it's one of my most cherished possessions. And I'm not a big like trophy guy or anything either. It's just like it's a piece of damn artwork. So it's like it's pewter and it's got like a raised logo, Texans logo on it. And it's just really cool. It's Ed Block Courage Award 2004. Holy crap. So it lasts 20 years going strong. I'm thinking about, I don't want to rip off the Ed Block Courage Award because it's a really good cause. They raise money for kids who are in protective custody. It's like, it's a really good cause. You go and at the awards, you do some appearances and everything, but it's called Ed Block Courage House. And it's these kids who are in protective custody, and it's a place for them. And I think, I can't remember if it's mothers as well, but they do really good work. So I don't want to rip them off. And yet, like something similar, like with a really cool concept, I'm thinking about just commissioning a bunch of those to get made and then selling them. But I got to figure out, I feel like it would be pretty pricey. So tell me in the comments what you think a reasonable price for something like this is. So it's like a genuine helmet. God, I feel very QVC-ish right now. This is real pewter. This is a raised logo, genuine helmet. Got all the branding and everything. We can even put we can put whatever slogan you want. We can personalize it for you. Like how much? But it's solid and it's heavy. Tell me what you think a reasonable price for that would be. And then this picture. This is I'm not selling this picture. So it's from like a pregame, like during warmups, we did the breakdown, and somebody happened to catch this. That's me right there. I think that's Kylie Wong. There's a few others there. So I like this. I don't like to put a lot of pictures of myself up, but that was like a picture of me, but where it's in the team environment. So there we have it. If and I actually will. I'll do the now I got to get on Alibaba. Send me a DM on Twitter or something and tell me my best contact in China to get something like that manufactured. I'm going to get running right now. This ended up being a lot longer and more fun than I thought it was going to be. Thank you for all of the really good comments. And please, if you haven't already, please helps a lot. If you want to share it with a friend, if you share some of my opinions about why JJ is more likely than not to come back, forward it to a friend on Facebook or something. And I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me on a Wednesday afternoon. Survivor tonight. I got to go. I got to prep for Survivor. Thank you, everybody. Like, subscribe, etc.